The first thing people noticed was the sound. It was not a boom. It was not thunder. It was a ripping noise, like the sky itself had been grabbed and pulled apart. In the middle of a busy street, above a giant vote banner that said, "Heroes Care," a crack of light opened. It looked wrong. The air around it shimmered, like heat over a road. Cameras were already there. They always were. A Vought Good Deeds event meant phones, drones, and a live crew with perfect hair and perfect smiles. A bus swerved. People screamed. A metal stage light snapped loose and fell. Then a man dropped out of the crack. He wore blue and red. A cape snapped behind him. He fell fast, then stopped in midair like the ground had lost its pull. His head turned, eyes scanning, taking in everything at once. Clark Kent did not ask where he was. He asked what was happening. A chunk of a billboard broke free and fell toward the sidewalk. Clark shot down, moving so fast most people only saw a blur. He caught the billboard with one hand, held it steady, and lowered it like it was made of cardboard. Another piece of metal fell toward a mother and her kid. Clark's hand flashed out. He caught it too. He set it down gently. No one got cut. No one even got pushed. The mother stared at him. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Clark gave her a small, calm nod, like this was normal, like saving people was just what you did. A second figure fell from the crack. This one did not float. He hit the ground in a crouch, hard enough to crack the pavement. Black cape, black armor, a pointed mask that hid his face. Bruce Wayne's eyes swept the street. He noticed the cameras first, then the guards in matching Vought jackets, then the way those guards moved to block exits. He didn't say a word. He stood, turned, and vanished into the crowd like a shadow sliding behind a wall. Someone shouted, "Is that part of the show?" A Vought host laughed too loudly. "Folks, please stay calm." The host stopped laughing when the sky crack widened again, spilling sparks and debris. Clark rose into the air and held his arms out, not to pose, to shield. A rain of broken metal came down. Clark moved like a machine built for one job. Catch, bend, toss away, catch, bend. Lower. He did it without hurting anyone. He did it without looking scared. Phones pointed up at him. A drone hovered close, trying to frame his face. Clark's eyes narrowed, not angry, focused. He looked through the drone, saw the motor, and flicked it gently. The drone spun off, harmless, and landed in a soft roll on a nearby rooftop. He looked down at the crowd. "Back up. Please, give people room." A Vought security chief barked orders into an earpiece. More guards flooded in. And then the air changed. It felt like pressure, like the world was holding its breath. A man landed on the street with a smile that did not reach his eyes. American flag cape, perfect hair, perfect posture. Homelander. Cameras swung toward him the way flowers turn toward sunlight. He raised his arms a little, soaking in it. Well, he said, loud enough for mics to grab. "Looks like Vought's having a surprise guest day." His eyes slid to Clark. The smile stayed. The look underneath did not. Homelander's hearing picked up a strange heartbeat, a steady, calm one. Not fear, not awe, just control. He did not like that. Clark floated down to street level and placed the last piece of debris beside a crushed car. He checked inside the car, then looked up at Homelander. Clark spoke first. His voice was polite. "Are you in charge of emergency response here?" Homelander blinked, like he didn't understand the question. Nobody asked him that. They asked for selfies. They begged. They praised. He stepped closer. "Buddy," he said, still smiling for the cameras. "I'm in charge of a lot of things." Clark looked around. People were hurt. People were scared. Guards were pushing the crowd back with more force than needed. Clark's jaw tightened. Then tell your people to stop shoving civilians. Homelander's smile twitched. Somewhere in the crowd, Bruce watched from behind a man's shoulder, eyes cold. He saw how fast Homelander's mood changed. He saw how the guards reacted to that mood like trained dogs. Homelander leaned in, voice lower now. The cameras could not catch it as well. "Who are you supposed to be?" he whispered. Clark held his gaze, calm, unmoved. And in Homelander's eyes, for the first time in a long time, there was something close to worry. Vought tried to take control in the first 10 minutes. They sealed off the street with black vans and portable barricades. They called it public safety. It felt like a cage. Clark stood near the damaged stage, listening to people talk over each other. He heard the way they said "vought," like it meant government. He heard how they said "soup," like it meant product. A medic rushed past, carrying a bloody cloth. Clark's face hardened. He took one step, then stopped when a man in a suit got in his way. The man wore a Vought badge and a too-bright grin. "Sir," the man said, "we're so glad you're cooperating. We have a few simple questions. Then we'll get you somewhere safe." Clark looked at the man's hands. Clean. Soft. Not a rescuer's hands. "I'm not leaving," Clark said. The man blinked. "Excuse me." Clark pointed to an injured woman sitting on the curb. "She needs help. The ambulance is stuck. Your people are blocking the road." The man glanced at the cameras, then forced a laugh. Of course. We just need to make sure everyone stays calm. Panic is..." Clark moved. He didn't shove. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward, and the Vought man had to move or be walked through. Clark lifted the stalled ambulance by its back end just enough to free the wheels, then set it down. The vehicle rolled forward, stunned, paramedics staring out the windows like they had seen a miracle. The crowd gasped, then cheered, then filmed even harder. Clark's eyes tracked every face. He didn't see joy first. He saw fear trying to hide inside joy. A few blocks away, Bruce Wayne was already inside the problem. He had taken a guard's badge and a single bump in the crowd. The guard never noticed. Bruce did not like how easy it was. He slipped behind a Vought van and listened. "Containment protocol," a voice said in his ear through the stolen earpiece. "Unknown soup, unknown vigilante. Keep them separated." Bruce frowned. Separated. Not helped? Not welcomed? Managed? He saw a second team moving with heavier gear. Not police. Not rescue. They carried restraints and syringes in padded cases. Bruce followed. Inside a nearby building lobby, 2 Vought security men spoke fast. "If the flag guy flips out, don't say flips, say escalates. If he escalates, Edgar wants clean footage. Clean." "No, mess." Bruce's eyes narrowed. Clean footage. No mess. That meant they were planning a story, not a rescue. He pulled back into the shadows and mapped the street in his head. Cameras, angles, exits, hostages if needed. He didn't like any of it. Back outside, Homelander posed for the cameras while his people worked. He pretended the newcomer did not bother him. He laughed. He waved. He shook hands. But his eyes kept drifting to Clark. Clark stood near the injured, speaking to them softly. He did not say his name. He did not introduce himself. He asked, "Are you okay?" And, "Where does it hurt?" And, "Do you have anyone to call?" A little boy, maybe 8, looked up at Clark with wide eyes. "Are you, like, Homelander?" Clark's face softened. "No," he said. "I'm not like him." The boy frowned. "But you can fly?" Clark glanced at Homelander, then back at the boy. "Flying isn't what makes someone good," he said. "Choices do." Homelander heard that. His smile stayed, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. Across the city, inside a small underground room that smelled like old paint and cheap coffee, Billy Butcher watched the footage on a battered screen. Huey sat beside him, tense. Mother's Milk stood with arms crossed. Frenchie leaned forward, eyes sharp. Kimiko sat quietly, watching faces, not words. On screen, Clark lifted twisted metal like it weighed nothing. Huey swallowed. That's not normal. Butcher's eyes were hard. It's a soup, he said. Just a different flavor. Shook his head. Look at him. He's not performing. He's working. Butcher snorted. Give it time. Starlight watched from a different place. She was backstage at Vault Tower, in a dressing room that had more mirrors than it needed. On the wall, a screen played the live feed, and Ashley's voice could be heard faintly outside, panicking in the hallway. Annie stared at Clark's face when he thought nobody important was watching. He looked tired, concerned, real. Who is he? Annie whispered. Her phone buzzed with a message from Vought PR. Do not engage. Wait for instructions. Annie's stomach twisted. She hated that her life came with instructions. In the upper floors of Vault Tower, Stan Edgar did not panic. He sat at a long table with a tablet in front of him, watching the footage without changing his expression. Scientists and executives spoke around him in nervous bursts. One of them has no known match in our database. Energy readings are abnormal. The tear in the sky. Edgar lifted one hand. The room went quiet. We don't need to understand them today, Edgar said. His voice was calm, almost bored. We need to control the narrative today. A scientist hesitated. Sir, if the Flying One is stronger than Homelander. Edgar didn't blink. Then Homelander will do what he always does, Edgar said. He will turn it into a personal problem. He tapped the screen. And we will turn it into a business problem. He looked at another executive. Get me Ashley. He looked at the scientist. Start tests. Observe their limits. Not with force. With context. Context? Someone repeated. Edgar's eyes stayed on the footage of Clark helping a stranger stand. Yes, Edgar said. This one has rules. Rules can be used. Outside in the city, Bruce set up a temporary base the way he always did. Fast and hidden. An empty storage space. One entrance, one exit. A clear line of sight to the street. A laptop. A small kit. A map. He didn't need a cave. He needed 10 minutes and quiet. He replayed the footage in his mind and built a list. Vought controls the heroes, not the other way around. Homelander is unstable. The public is trained to clap. And Clark is too open, too visible. Bruce's jaw tightened. He knew what this world would do to someone like Clark if he let it. A shadow moved at the edge of the room. Bruce turned fast. A gun clicked. Billy Butcher stepped into view, gun aimed without shaking. Behind him, and Huey stood tense. Frenchie smiled like this was a party. Kimiko's eyes stayed on Bruce's hands. All right, Butcher said. Mask off, mate. Who the hell are you? Bruce didn't flinch. He didn't raise his hands like a scared man. He shifted his weight slightly, ready. I'm not your enemy, Bruce said. Butcher laughed once, sharp and humorless. That's what they all say. Huey swallowed. Are you with Vought? Bruce's eyes moved to Huey. He saw fear and hope fighting inside him. No, Bruce said. And neither is he. Butcher's eyebrows lifted. Oh yeah? You know the flying bloke. Bruce didn't answer directly. He did what he always did. He showed proof. He reached into his belt slowly, so the gun didn't fire, and pulled out the Vought badge he stole, then the earpiece. He tossed them onto the table. MM's eyes narrowed. You took that off security. Bruce nodded once. Butcher's grin faded. So, you're a thief. I'm a detective, Bruce said. Frenchie leaned closer. A detective in a bat costume, he said, amused. In this country, that's not normal. Bruce ignored him. He looked at Butcher. You want to bring them down, Bruce said. "I want to bring them down. But if you do it your way, people die." Butcher's eyes hardened. "People die anyway." A low, controlled voice cut through the room. "And that's why you haven't won yet." Clark stood in the doorway. He didn't knock. He didn't sneak. He simply arrived because he had followed the sound of Butcher's heartbeat, and the stress in Huey's breathing, and the spike of anger in Bruce. Everyone froze. Huey stared like his brain couldn't pick a reaction fast enough. Butcher lifted the gun slightly. "Oh, look," he said. "He found us." Clark's eyes met Bruce's. A silent question passed between them. Bruce gave the smallest shake of his head. "Not now." Clark looked back at Butcher. "Put the gun down," Clark said, firm but not loud. Butcher smiled like a wolf. "Or what?" Clark didn't threaten. He didn't posture. He simply reached out, took the gun from Butcher's hand with a speed Butcher couldn't even track, and placed it on the table. Butcher's smile vanished. Kimiko's eyes widened. Frenchie let out a low whistle. Exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay, that's new." Clark looked at all of them. "People are getting hurt outside," he said, "and the people in charge care more about cameras than lives." He glanced at the vote badge. "I need to understand this world," he said. "Fast." Butcher leaned in, voice like poison. "This world doesn't deserve saving," he said. "It deserves burning." Clark's face tightened. "No," he said. "It deserves better." Bruce watched Clark say it with absolute certainty, and Bruce felt the familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Because in this world, certainty would be attacked from every direction. Outside, Vought's machines turned. Inside, the new status quo formed in a single breath. Clark would stand in the light. Bruce would work in the dark, and Vought would decide what it cost to break them. The trap started as a rescue. It always did. Vought announced an emergency in the most public way possible. A large chemical truck overturned near a busy intersection. A cloud of smoke rose. People ran. Sirens screamed. Vought news drones arrived before the fire department. Ashley's voice was already on live TV, strained but brave. "We are monitoring the situation," she said, "and our heroes are on the way." In a clean studio upstairs, Stan Edgar watched the footage with hands folded. He didn't ask if people were safe. He asked, "Do we have eyes on the alien?" A tech nodded. "He's moving toward it." "Good," Edgar said. Clark heard the panic from miles away. It wasn't just noise, it was the pattern. Too many heartbeats spiking at once, too many screams layered over each other. He shot into the air, cape snapping, and flew toward the smoke. He arrived above the intersection and saw the truth fast. The truck was real. The danger was real. But the way people were blocked into tight spaces was not accidental. Barricades had been placed in the wrong places. Streets were closed in a way that forced civilians toward the smoke instead of away. Clark's eyes narrowed. He saw Vote security doing it. He dropped into the intersection, landing without cracking the road. He lifted the truck with both hands, careful not to rip it open further, and moved it away from the crowd in one smooth motion. He set it down on an empty stretch of road. Firefighters stared. Clark didn't wait for applause. He moved to the leaking tank and used his heat vision in a thin, controlled line, sealing a split pipe like a welder. Then he turned back to the civilians. "Back up," he said. "Listen to the firefighters. Move down that street. Now." People listened without thinking. His voice carried authority without yelling. A child coughed, eyes watering. Clark scooped the kid up, ran him through the smoke faster than the eye could follow, and placed him in a medic's arms. The medic stammered, "Who?" Clark shook his head. "Just help him," he said. Above, a drone zoomed in on Clark's face. Clark looked up at it. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He looked tired again. That's what the camera caught. A hero who didn't want to perform. Vought's voice in the broadcast turned sharp. "He is interfering with trained professionals," the anchor said. Vought urges calm. Homelander arrived like a bullet. He hit the air above the intersection and hovered, cape spreading wide. He looked down at Clark and then at the cameras. He smiled big. "Don't worry, everyone," Homelander boomed. "I'm here." Clark looked up slowly. Homelander dropped lower, close enough that only nearby mics could catch him. "You really like stealing my spotlight," Homelander said through clenched teeth. Clark's voice stayed steady. "I'm not here for a spotlight." Homelander's smile remained for the cameras. His eyes didn't. "Then you're in the wrong world," he whispered. Clark heard the tremble under the words. Not fear of danger. Fear of being replaced. Clark kept his focus on the civilians. "Help them," he said. "Stop talking." Homelander's nostrils flared. He wanted to scream. He wanted to burn something. But the cameras were watching. So he did what he always did. He made it a show. Homelander shot down toward the truck, grabbed the front end, and yanked it up too roughly, shaking it like a toy. The truck groaned. Liquid sloshed. People screamed again. Clark moved in an instant, placing one hand under the truck to steady it, preventing a spill. His strength made Homelander's look careless. A firefighter shouted, "What are you doing?" Homelander turned the smile toward the firefighter. "Saving the day," he said. Clark's jaw tightened. "You're risking lives." Homelander's eyes flashed red for a moment. Just a hint, like a warning. "Careful," he murmured. Clark didn't back down. "No," he said. "You be careful." That simple sentence snapped something in Homelander. Not fully. Not yet. Homelander floated back up, higher, and raised his voice for the cameras. "This is a dangerous situation," he said. "We need everyone to stay calm. Unknown soups can cause—" Clark stopped listening. He didn't want a speech. He wanted the crowd safe. He took off like lightning, moving people out of the danger zone in fast, clean bursts. He carried a woman and her dog together. He guided an elderly man by the arm. He pulled a trapped driver out of a crushed car door without bending the frame too fast. He did it like it was normal work. And every time he did it, the crowd looked at him like they forgot how to breathe. Homelander watched. He watched the cameras follow Clark instead of him. He watched people cheer for someone else. He watched his world tilt. A Vought handler's voice crackled in Homelander's earpiece. "Homelander, keep it controlled. Keep it—" Homelander turned his head slightly. His lips barely moved. "Shut up," he whispered. Then he did the one thing Vought couldn't fully predict. He made it personal. Homelander dropped behind Clark, fast. So fast normal people couldn't track it. He grabbed Clark's cape and yanked. The cape tore free at the seam. Clark turned, eyes flashing with surprise, not pain. He didn't need the cape, but the move was a message. Homelander smiled, still fake. "Oops," he said, loud enough for the mics. "Costume malfunction." Clark's eyes narrowed. "Stop," he said, quiet and sharp. Homelander leaned in. "Make me!" Clark's hands clenched once, then loosened. Bruce's voice sounded in Clark's ear through a tiny comm device he had slipped onto Clark earlier. Bruce didn't use dramatic words. "Crowd," Bruce said. "He wants crowd." Clark understood. He rose straight up, forcing the fight away from the people. Not a challenge, a decision. Homelander followed instantly, hungry. They shot into the sky above the city, two capes cutting the clouds. From below, people pointed and screamed and cheered like it was a sports game. Huey watched from a rooftop with Butcher, and Annie. They had moved fast, chasing the event as soon as it hit the news. Huey's mouth hung open. They're going to—" grabbed Huey's shoulder. "Stay behind cover," he said. "If they fall, you die." Annie's eyes were locked on Clark. She couldn't stop. Something in her chest pulled tight. Butcher looked up. Face hard. "Two gods having a tantrum," he muttered. Shot him a look. "One of them's not tantruming." Above, Homelander struck first. He flew at Clark like a missile, fist out, grin gone. His punch hit Clark's chest. Clark didn't move. It was like punching a wall that didn't break. Homelander's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Then he punched again, harder. Clark drifted back a few feet in the air, controlled, like he was choosing to give space. He spoke, calm even now. "You need to stop," he said. Homelander snarled. "Or you'll what? Lecture me." Homelander's heat vision fired, twin red beams cutting toward Clark's face. Clark turned his head slightly and let the beams hit his shoulder instead. The fabric smoked. His skin didn't burn. Homelander's breath hitched. Clark's eyes shifted to Homelander's, and for the first time there was steel in them. Clark didn't blast him. He didn't throw him into orbit. He simply moved. Clark grabbed Homelander's wrist, twisted and redirected him. Homelander spun, losing control for a moment. Clark then caught him by the back of his suit and carried him higher. Fast, until the city below became small. Homelander thrashed like a trapped animal. "Let go!" Clark's voice stayed level. "Not until you calm down!" Homelander laughed, but it sounded thin. "You think you can tell me to calm down?" He tried to knee Clark in the ribs. Clark caught the knee with one hand. Homelander's face changed. The mask cracked. Fear touched his eyes, then rage covered it. He screamed and fired heat vision again, wild now. Clark turned his head and fired his own heat vision. Not at Homelander's face. At the beams themselves, slicing them offline, bending them away into the empty sky. Two red lines curved harmlessly into clouds. From below, the cameras caught a bright flash and nothing else. Vaught's broadcast struggled to frame it. The drones shook as they tried to keep up. On a different rooftop, Bruce watched through binoculars. He didn't watch the punches. He watched where they were drifting. He watched the angle. Homelander was trying to pull the fight back down, toward buildings, toward people, toward the story. Bruce spoke into his own comm line, tapped into a stolen Vought feed. "Cut the drone bandwidth," he said to Frenchie, who was crouched beside him with a small device and a grin. Frenchie pressed a button. "With pleasure." Several drones stuttered midair. Their feeds glitched. One crashed into a billboard. On live TV, the anchor panicked. "We are experiencing technical difficulties," Ashley screamed in the background of the studio audio. "No, no, get it back! Get it back!" Edgar didn't react. He only watched. He was learning. Above, Homelander realized the cameras were losing him. That made him desperate. He dove straight down. Clark followed, because he couldn't let Homelander hit the streets like a bomb. They fell fast. Two blurs heading for the city. At the last second, Clark shot past Homelander, got beneath him, and slammed upward. Hard. Homelander's body stopped. The air cracked. Homelander's mouth opened in a silent gasp. Clark held him there, pinned in the sky by nothing but Clark's grip and control. "You're going to kill someone," Clark said. Homelander's eyes darted. He saw the city below. He saw the people like ants. He saw how far he was from them. He felt small. He hated feeling small. So he did the cruelest thing he could think of. He smiled. "I already have," Homelander said softly. Clark's face didn't change at first. Then his eyes sharpened. "What did you do?" Homelander's voice turned sweet, fake again. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe your little rescue stunt made things worse. Maybe someone got trampled. Maybe it's your fault." He was fishing. He wanted Clark to snap. Clark didn't snap, but his hands tightened. A tiny tremor ran through the air around. Them, not from weakness, but from restraint. Like a giant holding a door shut with one finger. Clark closed his eyes for a single second. He took a breath. When he opened them, his voice was colder. "You lie to hurt people," he said. "That's who you are." Homelander's smile faltered again. Clark could have ended it there. One hard punch, one flight into space, one drop into the ocean. Instead, Clark made a different choice. He flew sideways, fast, dragging Homelander away from the city, toward the river, toward open air, toward places where falling wouldn't kill anyone. Homelander fought, twisting, trying to break free. He wasn't weak. He was strong enough to tear through steel, strong enough to rip normal people in half. But Clark was something else, and Homelander felt it in every second he couldn't control. Down below, Huey watched the fight drift away from the buildings. Huey's hands shook. He's moving him away," Huey said, stunned. "He's trying to keep people safe." Butcher's lips curled. "Yeah," he said, "because he thinks this is a comic book." Annie didn't look away. "Maybe it should be," she whispered. MM glanced at her. "You believe that?" Annie swallowed. "I don't know," she said, "but I want to." On the riverfront, the wind rose as the two figures streaked over the water. Homelander finally got one clean hit in. A punch to Clark's jaw, full power, no cameras near enough to see it. Clark's head turned slightly. Then he turned back. His eyes didn't glow. His face didn't twist. He looked disappointed. Homelander hated that more than pain. Clark grabbed Homelander by the shoulders, held him still in midair, and spoke like a teacher speaking to a dangerous kid. "This ends now," Clark said. Homelander's chest heaved. His eyes flicked, looking for the city, for the crowd, for any way to make this a story again. He found none. His voice cracked, just for a second. "You think you're better than me?" Clark's answer was simple. "Yes," he said, "because I choose to be." That word, choose, hit Homelander like a slap. Homelander's face twisted. Rage rushed in to cover the crack. He screamed and fired heat vision straight at Clark's eyes. Clark didn't dodge. He fired his own heat vision, sharper and controlled, and the beams met in the air. The clash flashed bright for a moment. Then Clark angled his beams down into the river, boiling a thin line of water away like steam. Homelander's beams wavered. Clark's did not. Homelander's eyes widened again. His breath came fast. Ugly. He stopped firing. He backed up in the air just a few feet, but it looked like retreat. Clark didn't chase. He didn't taunt. He hovered in place, keeping the distance, keeping the option open for Homelander to leave without making it worse. Homelander's pride screamed at him to attack again. His fear told him something else. He turned, sharply, and shot back toward the city, fast enough that the air snapped behind him. Clark watched him go, eyes heavy. Bruce's voice came through the comm again. "He's running," Bruce said. "He'll spin it." Clark's jaw clenched. "I know." On live TV, the feed came back in pieces. A shaky drone caught Homelander reappearing over a rooftop, breathing hard, hair slightly out of place. He forced a smile in half a second. He raised a hand to wave like nothing happened. The anchor's voice returned, too bright. Homelander had successfully pushed the unknown threat away from the city. Clark's eyes narrowed. He could hear the lie being built in real time. And he understood something important, something that hit like cold water. In this world, winning the fight was easy. Winning the truth would be harder. Far above, in Vault Tower, Stan Edgar watched Homelander's forced smile and the missing chunks of footage. He did not look angry. He looked thoughtful. "He didn't win," a nervous executive said. "Everyone saw." Edgar lifted a finger. "Everyone saw what we allowed them to see," he said. He stood slowly. "Now," he said, "we learn what the alien refuses to do." He glanced at another screen showing Clark hovering alone over the river, watching the city like it was a responsibility he didn't ask for. Edgar's mouth moved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Because that," Edgar said softly, "is where we will push." Clark turned back toward the city, cape torn, suit scuffed, face calm but eyes sharper than before. He flew toward the smoke and sirens again, because people still needed help, and because somewhere in the dark, a man in a bat mask was already building a plan to keep Clark from being turned into a weapon. The sky over the city looked normal again, but the world underneath it had changed. The next morning, Huey felt like he had dreamed the whole thing, except the TV proved it was real. Every channel showed the same shaky shots of two figures in the sky. They played the clips again and again. They slowed them down. They drew circles on the screen. They argued over what they might have seen. And every time the footage cut out, every time the drones glitched, Vought's anchors filled the space with words. Unknown soup escalates the situation. Homelander bravely redirects the threat. Vought remains committed to public safety. Huey sat on the edge of a worn couch in the hideout, hands locked together. His eyes stung from not sleeping. On screen, a smiling woman in a bright suit said, "The public deserves answers. Who is this flying man? Where did he come from? And why did he attack our greatest hero?" Huey whispered. "He didn't attack him." But the TV didn't care what was true. Butcher paced behind him like a caged animal. "See?" Butcher snapped. "Told you. This world eats anything good and turns it into an advert." MM stood with his arms crossed. He was watching Huey, not the TV. "You okay?" Huey tried to nod. His body didn't believe him. Frenchie sat on the floor, working on a small device with wires and tape. "They are spinning the story," he said, calm like it was math. "They will keep spinning until people forget what they saw." Kimiko watched the TV, eyes narrowed. She didn't like the smiles. She didn't like the way fear was hidden under jokes. The door creaked. Annie stepped in, hoodie up, no makeup, no cameras. She looked like someone who had been holding her breath for years and forgot how to let it out. Butcher's eyes turned sharp. Well, he said. "Look who crawled out of the tower." Annie kept her hands visible. "I'm not here for a fight." Butcher gave a short laugh. "You're always here for a fight. You just call it a brand." MM raised a hand. "Enough," he said. "Steady. Why are you here?" Annie looked at the TV, then at Huey, then down at the floor. "Because they're going to ruin him," she said. Huey blinked. "You mean the new guy?" Annie nodded. "They're calling him the Rogue." Her mouth twisted like it hurt. "They have a whole plan. The name, the logo, the talking points." Frenchie's eyebrows jumped. "They made a logo already?" Annie's laugh was small and bitter. "They made 6. Butcher leaned in. "And what about the Bat Freak?" Annie hesitated. "They don't have him. Yet." She looked at MM. "Vought hates what it can own." Huey swallowed. "So what do they do?" Annie's eyes lifted. "They squeeze," she said. "They squeeze until you either join or you break." High above the city, Clark hovered in still air, far enough away that the noise softened. He liked quiet. Quiet helped him think, but the quiet here never felt clean. Even from up here, he could hear the city's fear, like a low hum under everything else. Not just fear of crime. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of not clapping at the right time. Fear of heroes. He looked down at his suit. The cape was torn where Homelander had grabbed it. The rip was a reminder. Not of a fight. Of a choice. Clark could have ended that fight in seconds. He could have done it in a way that made sure Homelander never hurt anyone again. But then what? In this world, they would not call it justice. They would call it an alien execution. They would build a story that painted Clark as a monster. And the worst part was simple. People would believe it. A tiny sound touched his ear. Not wind. A signal. Bruce's voice came through the small comm. "They're moving," Bruce said. "New narrative. New setup." Clark's eyes sharpened. "Where?" "Downtown. Vought News Building. They're staging a community safety press event. They want you there." Clark's jaw tightened. "I'm not a prop." "I know," Bruce said. "That's why they want you there." Clark stared at the city for a second. Then he dropped out of the sky, fast and controlled, like a decision. The Vought News lobby smelled like expensive perfume and cold air. Security stood in a straight line, hands near their weapons, smiles tight. Ashley Barrett stood at the front with a tablet and a headset. Her eyes were wide and bright in a way that meant she was 2 seconds from screaming. When Clark walked in, the room shifted. People stared. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is that him?" Ashley's smile snapped on like a switch. She practically ran to him. "Oh my God," she said, breathless. Hi, okay, wow, you're tall, great. Very inspiring?" Clark's face stayed polite. "What is this?" Ashley laughed too loudly. "This is just a small Q&A, public reassurance, you know. Calm, friendly, human." She tapped her tablet. "We've got some great lines for you, like, 'I'm here to help.' And, 'Vought and I share the same values.'" People love values. Clark looked past her at the cameras being set up. "I don't share their values," he said. Quiet. Ashley's smile trembled. Okay. We can workshop. We can do. I respect Vaught's mission." Clark stepped forward, and Ashley had to follow, like she was being pulled by gravity. A man in a gray suit waited near the stage. He had a calm face and eyes that didn't waste energy. Stan Edgar. Clark studied him. This man wasn't excited. He wasn't scared. He was measuring. "Welcome," Edgar said. "We're glad you're cooperating." Clark didn't sit when offered a chair. "I'm not cooperating," he said. "I'm here to stop you from lying." A few executives stiffened. Ashley made a strangled noise. Edgar's face didn't change. "Then we have something in common," he said. "We both believe in control." Clark's eyes narrowed. "I believe in responsibility." Edgar nodded as if he had expected that answer. "Of course," he said. "That's why you're predictable." That landed harder than any punch. Clark took a slow breath. "People got hurt yesterday because your people blocked streets," he said. "They pushed civilians toward danger." Edgar's voice stayed calm. "Yesterday was chaotic," he said, "and chaos makes people feel unsafe." He gestured toward the cameras. "This is safety." Clark looked at the stage. "No," he said. "This is theater." Ashley's hand shot up like she was in school. "Okay," she blurted. "So, maybe we start with the name. People need a name. It helps them feel—" Clark cut her off without raising his voice. "My name is Superman," he said. Ashley froze mid-blink. A camera operator gasped like he'd just witnessed history. Edgar's eyes flicked, just a tiny movement. Not surprise. Interest. Clark faced the cameras. He stood straight. He didn't smile for them. He didn't threaten them either. "I'm not with Vought," Clark said. "I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to protect people." A reporter shouted, "Did you attack Homelander?" Clark's eyes stayed steady. "No," he said. "He attacked me, and I stopped him from hurting anyone." Another reporter yelled, "Are you an alien?" Clark paused for half a second. Then he said the truth in the simplest way. "Yes," he said, "but that doesn't change what's right." Ashley's face looked like it might fall off. Edgar leaned slightly toward a nearby aide and murmured something too low for even most mics. Clark heard it anyway. "Now we know," Edgar said softly. "He will always choose the honest path." Clark turned his head a fraction. "And now I know," Clark said. "You think honesty is a weakness." Edgar didn't deny it. He just watched. In a dark stairwell across the street, Bruce listened through a small receiver, eyes on the building. He wasn't watching Clark. He trusted Clark's heart. He was watching the exits. If Vought wanted to trap Clark, it wouldn't be with a debate. It would be with security, with paperwork, with an arrest, with a forced medical check. Bruce saw 3 black vans arrive, unmarked, too smooth. He saw the way the guards' shoulders lifted, ready. He spoke into his comm. "Leave," he told Clark. Short. Clark's voice came back, quiet. "I'm not done." Bruce's answer was colder. "They are." It happened fast. A loud bang from the back of the lobby. A screaming civilian rushing forward. A guard slamming the person down. Cameras swung. The room surged. "Assassination attempt!" someone shouted. Clark's head snapped toward the noise. His hearing caught the truth in an instant. The civilian was trained. The scream was fake. The gun was real. The bullet wasn't aimed at Edgar. It was aimed at a camera. Clark saw it. He moved. He caught the bullet between 2 fingers so cleanly, it looked like a magic trick. The room went silent for a beat. Then chaos rushed back in, louder. Ashley shrieked, "Oh my God, he stopped a bullet! That's... Edgar's voice cut through it, calm as ever. "Everyone remain calm," he said. "This is exactly why we need structure." Clark's eyes burned with anger now, controlled but real. He looked at Edgar. "You staged this," he said. Edgar didn't flinch. "I prevented panic," he said. Clark stepped forward, and the guards shifted, nervous. Bruce's voice came again. "Now," he said. Clark turned away from the stage and walked, not flew, toward the exit. The guards tried to block him. Clark didn't hit them. He didn't threaten them. He simply moved forward, and the guards had to choose between being crushed by his presence or stepping aside. They stepped aside. Clark exited into open air, and only then did he lift off and vanish into the sky. On the broadcast, Vought's anchors talked over the footage, voices bright. Homelander wasn't wrong to be cautious. Superman refused to cooperate with reasonable safety measures. Vought attempted to protect the public. In the hideout, Butcher watched and smiled like he'd been proven right. "That's it," Butcher said. "Now they'll paint him as a threat. Then they'll put him down." Huey's voice came out small. "He saved them." Butcher's eyes flashed. "And that's the problem," he snapped. "He makes people hope. Hope gets you killed." Annie clenched her hands. "Or hope changes things." Butcher scoffed. "Not in this world." MM's voice stayed steady. "It changes people," he said. "And people change systems." Butcher looked at him like MM had told a joke. Frenchie held up his little device. "Also," he said, "I have something fun." He pressed a button. On the TV, the assassination attempt replayed, but this time it was from a different angle. A hidden camera angle. The civilian had been handed the weapon by a guard. Huey's eyes widened. "How?" Frenchie smiled. "Batman," he said. Butcher's smile faded. "So the Bat Freak's useful." Annie stared at the screen. "If we have that," she said, "we can—" Butcher cut her off. "We can what? Show it?" He pointed at the TV. "They own the story. They own the channels. They own the courts. They own the people." Huey swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Butcher's eyes turned sharp and cold. "We do what we always do," he said. "We hit them where it hurts." MM's voice hardened. "Not like last time," he warned. Butcher didn't answer. He was already thinking about blood. That night, Superman stood on a rooftop and watched the city. Bruce landed behind him without a sound. Clark didn't turn. "They used a gun," Clark said. Bruce's voice was flat. "They used a camera," he corrected. "The gun was the stage prop." Clark's hands clenched at his sides. "People could have died." Bruce stepped closer. "They will," Bruce said, "if they can make it your fault." Clark finally turned. His eyes were tired. "I can stop them," Clark said. Bruce's gaze was hard. "You can stop the violence," he said. "You can't stop the machine by punching it." Clark's jaw tightened. "So what do you want me to do?" Bruce didn't hesitate. "We expose them," he said, "but we do it carefully. Because they will target your rules, your restraint, your need to save everyone." Clark's voice went quiet. "You talk like saving everyone is a weakness." Bruce's face didn't change. "In this world," he said, "it's a pressure point." Clark stared out at the city. "I won't change," he said. Bruce nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then we build plans around who you are, not who they want you to become." Clark looked at him. "And what about you?" he asked. "What if they target your rules?" Bruce's answer was cold and simple. "They already are," he said. Below them, a Vought billboard lit up, bright and cheerful. It showed Homelander smiling like a saint. Under it, new words flashed. "Protecting America from unknown threats." And in the corner, small but clear, a new logo appeared. A big red S Vought had taken Clark's name in one day. Clark's eyes narrowed. Bruce watched the billboard too. And in his head, the next move clicked into place like a lock closing. "They're done playing defense," Bruce said. "Now they're going to hunt." 2 days later, the hunt started with a tragedy. A children's hospital announced a security emergency. The news screamed about a soup threat. Parents cried, nurses ran, and the first name the anchors said was Superman. Clark arrived in a blur, landing at the hospital's front entrance. He took one look at the crowd and froze. Too many cameras, too many Vought guards, too many reporters with perfect hair. It wasn't a real emergency, not in the way they were describing it. But the fear was real. The people were real. And somewhere inside the hospital, Clark heard a child's heartbeat fluttering, weak and fast. His breath caught. He stepped forward, and a Vought safety official rushed up, blocking him with a practiced smile. "Sir," the man said, loud for the cameras, "we need you to—" Clark didn't wait. He moved past the man and went inside. Because a child was dying. And Vought had chosen the worst place in the world to use as bait. That was the pivot. That was the moment Bruce feared. Because now, Vought wasn't trying to embarrass Superman. They were trying to break him. And if Superman made one wrong move in a hospital full of kids, Vought wouldn't need to defeat him. They would only need to show the world a story it couldn't unsee. The hospital smelled like soap and fear. Clark moved through the hallway in a controlled sprint, fast, enough that nurses only saw a blur of blue and red, but slow enough that he didn't knock anyone down. He listened as he ran. He heard security radios. He heard boots. He heard a woman crying in a stairwell. He heard a child coughing too hard. And underneath it all, he heard something else, a steady pulse of electricity, like equipment that didn't belong. He stopped at a corner and looked through the wall with his vision. The third-floor pediatric wing was packed, children in beds, parents clutching hands, nurses trying to calm everyone. At the far end of the wing, behind a line of Vought guards, a man in black armor stood like a statue. No mask expression, no visible emotion. Black noir. Clark's eyes narrowed. "Bruce," he whispered into his comm. "He's here." "Of course he is," Bruce replied. "They want you to hit him. Don't." Clark's jaw tightened. "He's blocking the wing." "I said don't," Bruce repeated. "Find the real threat." Clark listened again. He followed the electric pulse with his hearing, tracking it like a faint buzz. It led to a maintenance door behind the nurse's station. Clark walked, not ran, toward that door. He didn't want to scare the children more than they already were. A Vought guard stepped in his path, hand raised. "Sir, you can't." Clark looked at him. "There are kids in danger," he said. "Move." The guard swallowed and moved. Clark opened the maintenance door and stepped into a narrow space filled with pipes and wires. The buzz was louder now. He turned the corner and found the source. A metal case, the size of a suitcase, bolted to the wall. Thick cables ran into it. A small light pulsed red. Clark stared at it. Red. His skin didn't hurt. Not yet. But the air around the case felt wrong. Heavy. Hot. Not like fire. Like pressure on his body. He understood in a flash. They'd been watching him. Measuring him. They didn't know everything, but they had guessed one important thing. He drew strength from sunlight, so they tried to change the sun around him. Clark stepped closer, careful. He didn't touch it yet. He scanned it. It wasn't magic. It wasn't kryptonite. It was technology pushing a certain kind of radiation into the air, shifting light and energy into something his body hated. It wouldn't make him weak like a normal man, but it would make him slower over time, less sharp, less able to recharge. A tool. A leash. Clark's breath went cold. "This is what they built," he whispered. "Break it," Bruce said. Clark reached out and ripped the case off the wall with one controlled pull. The red light flared. For a split second, Clark's vision blurred at the edges, like someone had pressed a hand against his face. He gritted his teeth, held firm, and tore the cables free. The buzzing stopped. The air felt cleaner immediately. Clark exhaled. Then he heard the real problem. A child's heartbeat, weak, spiking hard. Not from fear. From a medical machine failing. Clark bolted back into the hallway. On the third floor, Annie stood near a stairwell, hoodie up, trying to look like a scared civilian. She had slipped away from Vought's official line the moment she saw the hospital location. Vought never used hospitals for real hero work unless they wanted a specific kind of footage. She knew what kind. Her eyes found Black Noir at the end of the hallway. Noir didn't move much, but Annie noticed the details. The way he was positioned, the way the guards created a wide, clear space in front of him. They were giving him room to attack, and they were waiting for Superman to show up. A nurse rushed past Annie, crying, "The ventilator! It's not working!" Annie caught the nurse's arm gently. "Which room?" she asked. The nurse pointed with shaking fingers. 307. Annie looked down the hallway. Room 307 was behind Noir. Of course it was. Annie's stomach twisted. She pushed, forward anyway. A guard stopped her. "Ma'am, you can't." Annie's eyes flashed with anger. "There's a kid in there," she said. "Move!" The guard recognized her face under the hoodie and froze for a second, confused. That second was enough. Annie slipped past and moved along the wall, keeping distance from Noir. Noir's head turned slightly, like he sensed her. Annie's heart jumped. She kept walking. She reached the door to 307 and peeked inside. A child lay in bed, chest barely rising. A parent stood helpless, hands shaking, begging the nurse to do something. The ventilator screen flashed error codes. Annie clenched her jaw and stepped in. "Back up," she told the parent, calm but firm. The parent stared. "Who are you?" Annie didn't answer. She grabbed the machine, tried to reboot it. It failed again. She felt panic rise. Not stage panic. Real panic. She heard a gust of wind at the door. Superman. Clark stepped into the room fast, eyes scanning, seeing everything in a second. He didn't waste time. He placed 2 fingers near the ventilator's power line and used a tiny, careful pulse of heat vision, not to burn it, but to seal a loose connection inside the casing. He did it like a surgeon. The machine hummed. The screen stabilized. The child's chest rose more smoothly. The parent sobbed, collapsing into the nurse's shoulder. Annie stared at Clark, chest tight. "You fixed it," she whispered. Clark looked at her for the first time. He saw her face now, really saw it. "You're trying to help," he said. Annie swallowed. "So are you." Clark's gaze sharpened. "They brought you here for cameras," he said. Annie's voice went low. "They brought you here to fail." Clark's jaw clenched. Outside the room, a loudspeaker crackled to life. A Vought voice echoed down the hallway, loud for cameras and panicked parents alike. "Superman has entered a restricted area. Please remain calm. Vought security is responding." Clark's eyes flicked toward the hallway. He could hear the cameras moving. He could hear guards shifting into position. He could hear Black Noir's quiet footsteps. Annie's hands tightened into fists. "He's coming," she said. Clark stepped forward, body placing itself between the door and the room without thinking. "Stay with the kid," he told Annie. Annie didn't argue. She turned back to the child, hands steady now. She needed to be steady. Clark walked out into the hallway. And there he was. Black Noir stood 10 feet away, silent, helmet reflecting the bright hospital lights. Vought guards spread out behind Noir like backup for a weapon, not for people. A camera drone hovered near the ceiling, red light blinking, broadcasting. Clark stared at Noir. "This isn't the place," Clark said. Noir didn't speak. He moved. Noir launched forward in a sudden rush, fast and precise, aiming for Clark's chest with a blade. Clark caught Noir's wrist, easily, stopping the strike midair. The blade didn't even touch his suit. The strength difference was clear immediately. Noir wasn't here to win with power. He was here to win with optics. Noir twisted, using Clark's grip to pivot and kick the wall. He bounced, tried to drag the fight down the hallway, toward the doors with families watching, toward the cameras. Clark didn't let him. Clark lifted Noir off the ground with one hand and held him there, harmless, like a child caught sneaking cookies. The hallway went silent. A guard shouted, "He's attacking security!" Clark's eyes flashed with anger. "You are using a hospital as a stage," he said. "Move people away. Now." No one moved. They wanted the shot. Clark's breath came slow. He made a choice. He flew backward, carrying Noir with him, breaking through a maintenance door and into a service stairwell. The camera drone tried to follow. Clark flicked a finger and snapped the drone's wing, sending it tumbling, harmlessly into a pile of laundry carts below. Noir struggled, then went still for a second. Clark looked at him. "Tell them to stop," Clark said. Noir's head tilted, like he was listening to orders through an earpiece. Then Noir reached into his belt and threw a small metal disc at Clark's chest. The disc stuck to Clark's suit with a click. A second later, it flashed red. Clark's muscles tightened. His vision blurred slightly again, like earlier. Not enough to drop him, enough to irritate him, enough to slow him by a fraction. A fraction mattered in a hospital. Clark ripped the disc off and crushed it in his palm. Metal dust fell like sand. He looked down at Noir. Noir didn't attack now. He waited. Clark understood why. Noir wanted Clark to hit him, hard, angry, on instinct. Clark closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, his voice was quiet. "You're not the problem," he said to Noir. "You're the tool." Noir's head tilted again. No answer. Clark set Noir down on the stairwell floor, carefully, like placing down a heavy box. Noir immediately rolled back and sprang up, ready to strike again. Clark didn't give him the chance. He moved faster than Noir could track, grabbed Noir's shoulders, and pinned him gently against the wall. Not crushing, not hurting, just stopping. "You're done," Clark said. Noir's body went still. Then a voice came through the stairwell speaker system, cold and calm. "Stan Edgar." "Impressive restraint," Edgar said. "Very marketable." Clark's eyes narrowed. "Get out of the hospital," Clark said. Edgar's voice didn't change. "Our security is protecting frightened families," he said, "from an unknown alien who refuses oversight." Clark's hands tightened on Noir's armor. "You staged the equipment failure," he said. "You planted a radiation device. You used a child." There was a pause. Then Edgar said, "We used a situation." Clark's voice turned, sharp. "That's evil." Edgar's answer was simple. "That's business." Clark stared at the speaker like he could see Edgar through it. Then Clark made a different choice again. He released Noir and stepped back. Noir lunged, and Clark was gone. He shot out of the stairwell, through the hospital roof, and into the sky. Not to flee, but to see. To see the full building. To see where the cameras were. To see what trap was coming next. Because Bruce had been right. They weren't trying to beat him in a fight. They were trying to force him into a moment he couldn't undo. On a rooftop 2 blocks away, Bruce watched the hospital through a small scope. He had 3 screens running. One had a Vought security feed Frenchie had cracked. One had traffic cams. One had a simple audio waveform from the hospital comms. He heard Edgar's voice through the hack and felt his jaw tighten. Edgar was calm. That meant the danger was planned. Bruce spoke into his comm. "Clark," he said, "don't chase Noir. Don't chase Edgar. Find the exit route. They're going to frame you." Clark's voice came back strained but steady. "They already are." Bruce's fingers moved across his keyboard. He found something that made his eyes narrow. A list of scheduled, spontaneous events across the city. 3 in one night. All in places where civilians were packed close together. A parade route, a subway station, a community center with a children's event. Bruce's voice went colder. "They're going to make you choose," he said. "One place, one life. They'll blame you for the rest." Clark's voice went quiet. "Then I'll save all of them." Bruce didn't argue the heart of that. He argued the reality. "You can't be everywhere at once," Bruce said. "Not if they can slow you even a fraction. Not if they jam you. Not if they distract you." Clark didn't answer for a beat. Then he said, "Then we don't let them control the map." Bruce's eyes narrowed. "How?" Clark's voice was firm. "We take the truth from them," he said. "We take it from the source." Bruce understood instantly. The source wasn't the hospital. It was the lab. The people who built the tools. The files that proved they used kids and cameras like weapons. Bruce's mouth tightened. "I already have a lead," he said. That night, they moved like a team without saying it out loud. Bruce didn't like working with people. Not because he hated them, because people were weak points. But Clark wasn't a weak point. Clark was a lighthouse. And in this world, a lighthouse got shot at. So Bruce built a shadow around it. MM drove the van. He didn't ask where they were going. He asked, "How bad is it?" Bruce answered with numbers. Vought has at least 4 black sites in driving range. 2 labs that match the tech signature. 1 transport hub that moves compound phi. Butcher sat in the back, loading weapons with fast hands. "Good," he said. "We burn it all." Bruce's voice went flat. "No." Butcher's eyes snapped up. "Excuse me?" Bruce turned slightly, mask catching the dim van light. "We don't burn evidence," he said. "We take it." Butcher leaned forward, anger rolling off him. "Evidence doesn't kill Homelander." Clark sat across from Butcher, posture straight, calm like a wall. "Killing him isn't the goal," Clark said. Butcher laughed, sharp. "Then what the hell are you doing here?" Clark didn't blink. "Saving people," he said, "including the ones you don't like." Butcher's face twisted with disgust. "You really think you can save everyone?" Clark's voice didn't rise. "I have to try," he said. Frenchie leaned between them like a referee who enjoyed the fight. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "The angry one and the hopeful one. This is good drama." Kimiko nudged Frenchie's shoulder, annoyed. Annie sat near the side door, quiet, eyes focused. "The lab we're hitting," she said. "It's not just a lab." MM glanced at her in the mirror. "What is it?" Annie's voice went low. "It's where they hide the parts of the story they don't want anyone to see," she said. Bruce watched her for a moment. "How do you know?" Annie met his gaze. "Because I've been used as the story," she said, "and I've seen what they bury." Butcher snorted. "Touching." MM cut him off. "Save it," he said. "We do this clean." Butcher muttered. "Clean is how they keep winning." Clark looked out the van window at the city lights passing by. "Not anymore," he said. The facility sat outside the city, behind fences and polite signs that said, "Medical Research." There were no bright vote logos on the gate, no smiling heroes, just cameras, guards. Quiet. Bruce watched through binoculars from a hill. "Two main entrances," he said. "One underground access point." Frenchie smiled and tapped his bag. "Underground access is my favorite kind." Clark stood beside Bruce, still and listening. He could hear heartbeats inside the facility. A lot of them. Not just guards, scientists, workers, and something else. A slow, heavy heartbeat that didn't match the rest. Clark's eyes narrowed. "Noir is here," he said. Butcher's face lit up with anger, like it was fuel. "Good." Bruce's voice stayed cold. "No," he said. "Bad. Because Noir is not the only thing here." He tapped his tablet and showed them a map he had pulled from VOT servers. A room marked Storage, another marked Test, and a locked section marked Daylight. Clark stared at that last word. His jaw tightened. Annie's hands clenched. "That's what they called it," she whispered. "They joked about it. Like it was cute." Clark's eyes hardened. "It's not cute," he said. MM looked between them. "Plan," he said. "Now." Bruce spoke fast and simple. "We go in quiet," he said. "We take files. We take prototypes. We leave fast. No bodies if we can avoid it." Butcher scoffed. Clark looked at Butcher. "No killing," Clark said. Butcher's eyes flashed. "You don't get to—" Bruce cut in, sharper than Clark. "You're in my plan," Bruce said, "or you're out." Butcher stared at him for a long second. Then he leaned back and smiled like he had decided something. "Fine," Butcher said. "Your plan." MM didn't like the smile. Kimiko didn't either. They entered through the underground access like a bad memory. Frenchie's tools worked fast. A lock clicked. A metal door opened into a service corridor. The air inside was colder than outside. It smelled like disinfectant and metal. Clark moved carefully. His boots made almost no sound. He didn't need stealth, but he respected it. Bruce led, eyes reading every camera angle, every motion sensor. Annie stayed close to Huey, who had insisted on coming, even though his hands shook. "I can do this," Huey whispered. Annie glanced at him. "I know," she said. They passed a hallway window that looked into a lab room. Inside, a scientist worked on a device that glowed faint red. Clark stopped, eyes narrowing. Bruce touched his arm. "Later," Bruce said. Clark's voice went tight. "They're building more." Bruce nodded. "That's why we're here." They reached a server room. Bruce slid a device into a port and began pulling data. Lines of code moved, files downloaded. Stood guard, gun ready. Frenchie hummed under his breath like he was cooking. Butcher paced near the door, restless, eyes darting like he wanted a fight. Clark listened. He heard boots. A lot of boots. Not rushing, not panicked. Organized. He turned his head slightly. "We're compromised," he said. Bruce didn't look up. "I know," he said. 30 seconds. The hallway lights flickered once, then every light in the corridor shifted to a dull red. Clark felt it immediately. Not pain, not weakness like a switch, but a drag, like his muscles had to work harder to be perfect. A voice came over the facility intercom, smooth, cheerful in a fake way. "Good evening," Ashley said. "Please remain where you are. You are trespassing in a secure medical—" A deeper voice cut her off. "Edgar." "Hello, Superman," Edgar said. "And hello, Batman." Huey's eyes widened. "He said Batman?" Bruce didn't react. He kept working. Edgar continued, calm. "You came for truth," he said. "So, here is a truth. In our world, truth is what people are allowed to hold." Clark's eyes burned. "Let the workers leave," Clark said. "This isn't their fault." Edgar's voice was flat. "You care about workers," he said. "Good. We took that into account." A door at the end of the corridor opened. Black Noir stepped out. Behind Noir, more guards poured in, rifles raised. Not aimed at Clark, aimed at Huey, Annie, Mem, Frenchie, Butcher, all the humans. Clark's body shifted slightly in front of them without thinking. Noir began walking forward. Bruce's device beeped softly. "Download complete." Bruce pulled it free. "Move," he said. They backed down the corridor, but guards filled the space behind them too. They were being boxed in, and the red light made the air feel thicker, heavier. Not enough to stop Superman. Enough to make timing dangerous. Noir lunged. Not at Clark. At Huey. Clark moved faster than thought, grabbing Noir mid-strike and yanking him back. Noir twisted like a fish on a line and threw a blade toward Annie. Clark caught it with his other hand. Clean. Guards opened fire. The bullets pinged off Clark's suit and skin like rain on stone, but the sound was loud in a tight hallway. Huey flinched hard. Shouted, "Down!" Frenchie threw a small device that burst into thick smoke. Not poison, just cover. Kimiko moved through the smoke like a silent knife, knocking a guard down, then another. But the guards weren't trying to win with bullets. They were trying to force Clark into a mistake. Clark heard Edgar's voice again, almost amused. "Careful," Edgar said. "Every second you hesitate, the story writes itself." Clark's teeth clenched. He looked at the guards, then at Noir, then at his friends trapped behind him. He made his choice. Clark stomped once. The floor cracked in a controlled ring, not collapsing the building, just sending a shockwave down the hallway that knocked every guard off their feet without breaking their bones. Guns clattered. People yelled. Noir stayed on his feet, braced, strong. Clark grabbed Noir again and pushed him backward through a door, slamming it shut between Noir and the team, not to trap Noir forever, to buy seconds. "Run," Clark told the others. Grabbed Huey's collar and hauled him. Annie followed. Frenchie cursed happily as he ran. Kimiko moved like a ghost at their side. Butcher hesitated, eyes on the fallen guards, hunger in his face. Bruce grabbed Butcher's shoulder hard. "Now!" Bruce snapped. Butcher's face twisted. Then he ran. Clark stayed behind, facing the door. Noir was already slamming into from the other side. The red light pulsed, stronger now. Clark felt the drag deepen. Not enough to make him weak, enough to make him angry. And anger was what they wanted. Clark inhaled, slow. Then he did something simple. He used his heat vision, thin and precise, not to burn people, but to cut a clean line through the ceiling above the corridor. A panel dropped. Pipes burst. Water exploded down in a roaring sheet, soaking the lights and wiring. The red lights flickered, sputtered, and died. Normal white light returned in a stutter. Clark felt the air unlock again. He heard Bruce's voice through the comm. "Exit route now," Bruce said. Clark didn't answer with words. He answered with speed. Clark blasted down the corridor after the team, caught up in a heartbeat, and lifted the entire group, carefully, off the ground. They rose through the facility's service tunnel and out into open night, like a bubble breaking through the surface of water. Outside, alarms screamed. Spotlights snapped on. Vought helicopters roared overhead. And on a nearby hill, cameras waited. Always cameras. Clark saw them. He understood the final part of the trap. They wanted footage of Superman carrying terrorists away from a medical facility. They wanted a picture that could be turned into a headline. Clark looked at Bruce. "We have what we came for?" he asked. Bruce nodded once. "Enough," he said. "Not everything, but enough." Clark's eyes flicked to the facility. He could hear workers inside, frightened, confused. He wanted to go back and shut it all down, tear it apart, end it now. Bruce saw that look and spoke fast. "If you level it," Bruce said, "they win." Clark's hands tightened slightly. "And if we leave it," he said, "they keep building." Bruce's answer was blunt. "Then we come back smarter," he said. Clark stared at the facility for one long second. Then he chose the hard path again. He carried the team away into the dark. Behind them, on the hill, a Vought camera zoomed in and captured the shot it wanted. Superman. At night. Flying with criminals. The clip would be everywhere by morning. And inside the facility, deep in the daylight wing, Stan Edgar watched another screen. On it, a technician held up a small metal disc, one of the red devices Clark had crushed earlier. The technician smiled nervously. "We recovered fragments," he said. Edgar nodded. "Good," he said. "We learned he will always protect the people with him." He looked at the screen showing Superman disappearing into the night with Batman and the others. Edgar's voice stayed calm. "Now," Edgar said, "we build an offer he can't ignore." And in another room, Black Noir stood silent, watching the same footage. His head tilted slightly, like he was curious, like he wasn't done. A week passed, then another. The city got used to the idea that the sky could tear open and drop gods onto the street. Vought worked fast. Billboards changed overnight. Morning shows had new segments. People wore shirts with a big red S like it was always theirs. Clark saw his symbol on a bus ad above the words, "Vaught's next great hero." He didn't feel proud. He felt sick. He stood on a rooftop at sunrise, letting the light hit his skin. The sun still helped. It still made him feel steady. But the world below didn't feel steady at all. His comm clicked. Bruce's voice was short. "They're inviting you." Clark didn't ask who. He already knew. "They can invite all they want," Clark said. Bruce paused. "It's not an invite," he said. "It's a trap with a calendar." Clark looked down at the street. 2 Vought trucks rolled by with smiling faces on the side. Homelander's face was biggest, like always. And next to it, a fake version of Clark's face, built from guesses and filters. Clark's jaw tightened. Where? Vought Tower, Bruce said. Top floor. Private room. Clark took a slow breath. I'm going, he said. Bruce didn't like that. Why? Because if I don't, Clark said, they'll do something worse to get me to show up. Bruce didn't argue. He just adjusted. Then I'm already inside, he said. Clark's mouth twitched. Of course you are. That was the only joke either of them had in them. Ashley Barrett had not slept properly in days. She drank coffee like it was oxygen. Her hands shook when she scrolled. She had 3 phones, 1 tablet, and a headset that felt glued to her skull. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Clark's calm face at the press event. Not afraid, not impressed, not buying anything. He was a nightmare. She stood outside a sleek glass meeting room and repeated the words, in her head like a prayer. Keep him smiling. Keep him vague. Keep him safe. Stan Edgar didn't need a prayer. He didn't need coffee. He just walked in on time. Is he coming? Ashley asked, voice too high. He will, Edgar said. Ashley swallowed. And if he doesn't? We have the rally in 2 days, and Homelander is already mad, and the merch. Edgar looked at her. Not harsh, not kind, just flat. You worry too much, he said. Ashley almost laughed. That's literally my job, she said. The glass doors opened. Superman stepped in. Ashley's mind screamed. Smile? Her face obeyed. Superman, she chirped. Hi, wow, great to see you. Love them. Very you of you. Clark looked around the room. No cameras, no crowd. Just a long table. 2 chairs. A bottle of water placed like a prop. He didn't sit. Edgar gestured. Please, he said. We can talk like adults. Clark stayed standing. Talk, he said. Ashley hovered near the wall, trying to look invisible while also trying to control everything with her eyes. Edgar folded his hands. This world is not yours, he said. You see that? I see people getting hurt, Clark said. I see lies being sold as safety. Edgar nodded once, like Clark had recited a fact. And you think the answer is to be pure, Edgar said. To be honest, to refuse compromise. Clark's eyes hardened. The answer is to do what's right. Edgar leaned back slightly. Then let's do what's right, Edgar said. Together. Ashley perked up like a dog hearing a treat bag. She tapped her tablet and slid it forward on the table. A contract. Thick, glossy, the kind that smelled like money. Edgar's voice stayed calm. We give you a legal identity, he said. Resources, a team, a platform. You can protect more people than you ever could alone. Clark looked at the contract like it was a snake. And in return, he asked. Edgar's eyes did not blink. Return. We make sure you are accountable, he said. We guide messaging. We avoid panic. We avoid misunderstandings. Clark's jaw tightened. You mean you own me? Ashley laughed nervously. No, not own. That's such a harsh word. We prefer partner, or affiliate, or… Clark didn't look at her. I'm not a product, he said. Edgar's voice turned slightly sharper, still quiet. Everything is a product, he said. You simply don't like admitting it. Clark stepped closer to the table. You used a hospital, he said. You put kids at risk to get footage. Don't talk to me about accountability. Ashley's face went pale. She opened her mouth. Edgar lifted a finger, and she stopped. Edgar's gaze stayed on Clark. You came into a broken world, he said, and you think you can fix it with strength and kindness. Clark's voice went low. Strength and kindness are not the same thing, he said. But I have both, and I'll use them. Edgar nodded slowly. Then I will be direct, he said. If you refuse us, we will treat you like a threat. The government will too. Your friends will be blamed. Anyone near you will be targeted. Clark's eyes flashed. "Leave them out of this." Edgar's tone didn't change. "They are already in it," he said, "because you won't leave." Clark stared at Edgar for a long beat. Then he asked the real question, simple and heavy. "Can you send us home?" Clark said. Ashley's eyebrows jumped. She looked at Edgar like, "Are we saying that part out loud?" Edgar didn't flinch. "Eventually," he said. "We are studying the anomaly. With your cooperation, progress will be faster." Clark's hands clenched. Home, Lois, his parents, his world. And then he heard Bruce in his ear. So quiet, only Clark could hear it. "He's baiting you with a door," Bruce said. "Don't hand him the key." Clark closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, the decision was clear. "No," Clark said. Ashley's breath caught. "Wait, no thank you, or—" Clark looked at the contract again, then at Edgar. "No," he repeated. "I won't join you. I won't sign. I won't help you control people." Edgar watched him like a chess player watching a piece move exactly where expected. "Then you choose conflict," he said. Clark's voice stayed steady. "I choose people," he said. "I choose truth. And you can't buy that." Clark turned and walked out. Ashley sagged against the wall like her bones gave up. "We are so dead," she whispered. Edgar didn't move. "No," he said. "Now we begin." That night, Butcher slammed a folder onto a table in the hideout. Bruce didn't flinch. He was already reading 3 screens at once. Huey sat nearby, eyes tired. Annie stood with arms crossed. Watched everyone like a parent trying to keep kids from setting the house on fire. Frenchie munched something from a bag, like this was movie night. Kimiko leaned against the wall, quiet, listening. Butcher pointed at the folder. "We've got enough," he said. "Lab files, hospital setup, prototype junk. If we drop it all, Vought bleeds." Bruce didn't look up. "If we drop it wrong, Vought buries it," he said. Butcher leaned in. "Then we drop it right," he snapped. "We put it on every screen in the city. We shove it down their throats." Annie's jaw tightened. "And then what?" she said. "They spin it. They call it fake. They call us terrorists. They—" Butcher cut her off. "They can't spin a dead Homelander," he said. The room went cold. Clark stood near the doorway, silent until now. He had been listening. He always listened. "No," Clark said. Butcher's eyes turned bright with anger. "No," he barked. "That's your answer to everything. No killing. No harsh choices. No reality." Clark stepped forward. He didn't loom. He didn't threaten. He just stood there. Solid. "My answer is no," Clark said. "Because you don't fix a rotten system by becoming the rot." Butcher laughed. It sounded like pain. "You don't get it," he said. "This world doesn't reward your rules. It uses them." Clark's voice stayed calm. "Then I keep my rules anyway," he said. Butcher's face twisted. "And people die while you keep them." Huey stood up suddenly, voice shaking but loud. "Stop," he said. Everyone stared at him like they had forgotten he could be loud. Huey swallowed. "He saved a kid in that hospital," he said, looking at Butcher. "He saved a kid you wouldn't even see. So don't tell me he doesn't get it." Butcher's eyes flicked to Huey, sharp. "Oh, look at you," he said. "You got yourself a real hero. You gonna cry now?" Huey's hands clenched. "Maybe," he said. "But at least I'm not trying to fix my pain by making everyone else bleed." Stepped between them before it got worse. "Enough," he said. Bruce finally looked up. "We're not killing Homelander," Bruce said. "Not because we're soft, because it doesn't solve the machine." Butcher stared. "And what does?" he demanded. Bruce's eyes were hard. "We take the machine's favorite weapon," he said. The story, Frenchie grinned. Ah, he said softly. The big show. Bruce tapped a screen. A map appeared, simple and clear. 2 days, he said. Vought rally, Homelander on stage, giant screens, live broadcast, controlled crowd. Annie's face tightened. They're going to announce something, she said. Bruce nodded. They're going to announce Superman, he said. Clark's jaw tightened. Bruce continued. They will claim he's joined, he said. They'll use a fake message, a fake endorsement. They'll say he signed. Huey's eyes widened. Can they do that? Annie's voice went flat. They do it all the time, she said. They just usually do it to people who can't fight back. Clark's voice was quiet. So, we fight back, he said. Bruce's eyes met his. At the rally, Bruce said. We drop the truth, live. Raw clips. Full files. Edgar's voice. Ashley's staging notes. Everything. Butcher's smile came back. Thin. And if Homelander snaps? He asked. Clark's answer was instant. Then I stop him, he said. Butcher leaned closer. Without killing him? He challenged. Clark didn't blink. Without killing him, he said. Butcher's smile faded. He didn't like it. But he didn't have a better plan that didn't burn the world down. Bruce looked at everyone. We do this clean, he said. We do it fast, and we accept that the story won't flip in one day. But we crack it. Nodded once. Then let's crack it, he said. Kimiko lifted her chin slightly. Ready. Frenchie patted his bag of devices like they were pets. I was born for cracking, he said. Annie took a slow breath. If I go public, she said, they'll come for me. Clark looked at her. His voice softened. They already have, he said. You still showed up. Annie's eyes stung. She looked away. Yeah, she whispered. I did. The day of the rally, the city looked like a party and felt like a hostage situation. Barriers lined the streets. Drones hovered overhead. Vought guards smiled too wide. People waved flags and signs like they were cheering for a sports team. A giant stage stood in the center of it all. Above it, 3 massive screens played highlight reels of Homelander saving people. Every shot was perfect. Every shot was clean. Backstage, Ashley paced with a clipboard like she was running a wedding for monsters. We need the Superman segment to land, she hissed into her headset. We need the crowd to feel safe. We need the chant. We need, a tech whispered. He's not here. Ashley's face went white. What do you mean he's not here? She snapped. Where is he? The tech swallowed. Not in the building. Ashley's eyes darted. Panic rose like a wave. On stage, Homelander stepped out with his biggest smile. The crowd screamed. He raised his arms. My people! He boomed. Huey watched from the edge of the crowd, wearing a hat too low, heart pounding. Stood near him, calm but ready. Frenchie was crouched behind a control box under the stage, fingers moving fast. Kimiko stood nearby like a quiet warning sign. Annie was farther back, hidden, eyes locked on the stage. She could feel the old fear crawling up her spine. She shoved it down. And on a rooftop across the street, Batman watched everything through a small scope. His screen showed the live feed. His other screen showed his upload status. Ready. He spoke into his comm, voice flat. Now, he said. Frenchie pressed a button. The big screens on stage flickered. Homelander's highlight reel froze mid-smile. For 1 second, the crowd murmured in confusion. Then the screens changed. A raw clip played. Grainy. Ugly. Real. A Vought guard handing a weapon to a civilian in the Vought news lobby. The assassination attempt from the angle Vought never showed. The crowd's noise shifted. Some people booed. Some people gasped. Some laughed like it had to be a prank. Homelander's smile twitched. Another clip hit the screens. The hospital hallway. Noir at the end. The red lights. The safety announcement. A child coughing. A nurse crying. Then a file list. Clear names. Clear timestamps. The word daylight in bold. Homelander's eyes flashed red. He turned his head slightly, hearing Ashley screaming through his earpiece, hearing Edgar's calm voice somewhere behind the stage, hearing the crowd's confusion. He didn't care about the truth. He cared that something was taking his love away. He lifted his hand toward the screens like he wanted to crush them. And then the air changed again. A gust of wind cut through the street. Superman dropped from the sky and landed between Homelander and the crowd. He didn't strike. He didn't shout. He just stood there, a wall of calm in the middle of a storm. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Homelander stared at him, eyes burning. "You're ruining my day," Homelander hissed. Clark's voice was quiet, but it carried. "You ruined people's lives," he said. Homelander's smile snapped off. "You don't belong here," he said. "This is my country." Clark's eyes stayed steady. "People aren't property," he said. "Not yours. Not votes." Homelander's gaze flicked over the crowd, then back to Clark. His voice turned sweet, fake again. "Look at you," he said, "trying to be a symbol. You think they'll love you?" Clark didn't take the bait. "I don't need them to love me," he said. "I need them to be safe." Homelander's heat vision fired without warning. 2 red beams shot toward the crowd. Clark moved like a snap. He angled his body and caught the beams on his chest, absorbing them, then stepped sideways, so the beams raked harmlessly up into the sky. The crowd screamed anyway. Some people ran, some froze, some filmed harder. Homelander lunged at Clark, fists swinging. Clark caught the first punch, then the second, then held Homelander's wrists. The strength difference was obvious. Homelander strained. Clark didn't. Homelander's face twisted. "Let go!" he spat. Clark's voice was firm. "Stop!" he said. Homelander kicked, trying to knock Clark backward into the crowd. Clark didn't move. Instead, Clark lifted. He took Homelander off the ground with a clean motion and shot straight up, dragging the fight into open air. People below watched 2 bright shapes rise above the stage like a nightmare leaving the street. Batman's voice came through Clark's comm. "Keep him away," Bruce said. "The upload is still running." "I know," Clark replied. High above, Homelander fought like a man drowning, wild, angry, desperate. He threw punches that could shatter concrete. Clark redirected them with small movements, turning them into empty swings. Homelander tried heat vision again. Clark blocked it again. Homelander screamed, "Why won't you hit me back?" Clark's answer was simple. "Because I'm not you," he said. That broke something in Homelander's eyes. For a moment, there was no mask. Just a scared, furious man who couldn't stand losing control. Homelander tried to dive back down. Clark grabbed his cape and yanked him sideways, sending them over the river. They hit the air hard enough to make a crack. Water below rippled. Homelander gasped, then snarled. He swung again. Clark finally pushed back, not with a brutal punch, but with a firm shove that sent Homelander tumbling through the air and stopping in a hover he barely controlled. "You can keep running," Clark said, "or you can stop hurting people." Homelander's chest heaved. He looked down at the city, at the tiny crowd, at the stage that wasn't worship anymore. He looked back at Clark, eyes burning. Then he turned sharply and shot away, disappearing into the clouds. Clark didn't chase him into the city. He knew the most important thing had already happened. The truth had been seen. Not by everyone. Not cleanly. But it had been seen. Clark drifted down toward the rally again. Below, the crowd was chaos. Some people shouted fake. Some shouted Vought lied. Others were just crying because they had watched their hero try to laser them. Police lines moved in. Vought guards scrambled. Ashley was screaming backstage. Batman watched from his rooftop as the upload hit the final cent mark. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just watched the city's reaction like a doctor watching a patient wake up in pain. "It's out," Bruce said into the comm. Clark landed near the stage, eyes scanning for injuries, for panic, for stampedes. He moved instantly, guiding people out of choke points, lifting barriers, clearing paths, using his body like a shield without hurting anyone. Annie stepped into the open, shaking, and grabbed a mic that had fallen near the stage. For 1 second, she almost froze. Then she remembered the kid in room 307. She raised the mic. "My name is Annie January," she said, voice trembling but loud. "And Vote used a hospital. They used children. They used us." The crowd's noise shifted again. Some people stared like they were hearing a forbidden language. Annie swallowed. "They will tell you I'm lying," she said. "They will tell you this is edited. But you saw him try to hurt you. You saw them hide it." She pointed up at Clark, who was carrying an elderly man away from the crush of bodies. "That man saved people today," she said. "He didn't ask for applause. He didn't ask for money. That's what real looks like." Somewhere backstage, Edgar watched the crowd on a screen, expression unchanged. Ashley sobbed quietly beside him, whispering, "We're finished. We're finished." Edgar didn't comfort her. "No," he said. "We adapt." On the stage, Clark set the elderly man down gently and looked at Annie. He didn't nod like a celebrity. He nodded like a teammate. Across the street, Bruce moved already, stepping into the shadows, disappearing before Vote's cameras could find him. The rally didn't end Vote. It didn't end Homelander. But it cracked the lie in the brightest place Vote had built. And cracks spread. Night came, and the city felt different. Not safer, not clean, not fixed, but different. Clark stood on a rooftop again, watching lights and listening to voices. He heard anger. He heard fear. He heard confusion. He also heard something small that had been rare in this world. People asking questions. Behind him, Bruce landed without a sound. Clark didn't turn. "They'll come back harder," Clark said. Bruce's voice was flat. "They already are," he said. "They'll call it fake. They'll arrest people. They'll threaten families." Clark's eyes narrowed. "And we'll keep going," he said. Bruce paused. "You sure you want to stay?" he asked. Clark's throat tightened. He thought of home, of names nobody here would understand, of a world where his symbol meant something without a contract. "I don't know how to leave," Clark said honestly, "and I won't abandon people just because I'm stranded." Bruce's cape shifted in the wind. "Good," he said. Clark finally turned. "You still don't trust me," Clark said. Bruce's eyes didn't move much. "Trust isn't a switch," he said. "It's built." Clark's mouth twitched, tired. "You have a plan for me," he said. Bruce didn't deny it. "I have plans for everyone," he said. Clark nodded once. "That's fair," he said. "As long as you remember, I'm not your weapon." Bruce looked at him for a long second, then gave the smallest nod. "I know," he said. Down on a street corner, Huey and Annie stood near a small group of people holding phones and replaying clips. Some were crying. Some were shouting. Some were just quiet. Huey watched a man in a Vought shirt lower his head and whisper, "He tried to kill us." Annie's hand shook. "They're going to destroy me," she said softly. Huey looked at her. "They tried," he said. "You're still here." Annie swallowed. "Do you think it matters?" she asked. Huey thought of Clark stopping heat vision with his own body. He thought of Batman in the dark, turning lies into proof. "I think," Huey said, Voice small but sure. It matters because it's real. Annie let out a breath that sounded like she had been holding it for years. Above them, Clark watched the city and listened. Not for praise, for trouble, for people in danger. Bruce stepped closer to the rooftop edge, eyes on Vought Tower in the distance. Light still burned there. Power still sat behind glass and smiled in meetings. Bruce's voice was quiet. "This world won't become good," he said. "Not fast." Clark's voice was quiet too. "Then we don't measure it by fast," he said. "We measure it by right." Bruce looked at him, and for a moment, the hard edge in his face eased just a little. Far below, a billboard flickered as technicians tried to replace the hacked feed. For 1 second, before it went back to a smiling lie, the screen showed a simple sentence someone had typed over a black background. "Not for sale." Clark watched it vanish. He didn't look sad. He looked determined. Because even if the screen went dark, the choice stayed.